you've got to learn if you're going to help people. And this is it. So now I'm speaking as a consultant. There's one thing that I do is like, can I just check something? And usually it's really interesting because when I say, can I just check something? You said that. But considering this and this, I'm not sure how that fits together. And you know what happens? I then see about half of the table start nodding. And I'm thinking, well, but why didn't you check yourselves? A lot of times and I don't want to use the word pretend, but I probably would, right? A lot of times and this is because again, we're talking about corporate, but it's a problem with SMEs, but it's a bigger problem in corporate, because what then happens is we're then putting out vision statements, we're putting out mission statements, we're putting out strategy statements, we're putting out business plans that actually don't make sense.
Talking with the experts.
Hello, and welcome to Talking with the Experts. My name is Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com, and Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners, and you can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And today I am pleased to have DJ Sobanjo, who is a speaker, trainer, consultant, and a radio host. He is a globally recognised veteran management, organisational and leadership development specialist. He has a strong passion for business and people development. He is the founder of The Leading Manager, an organisation focused on helping organisations employ and develop managers that deliver the future of the organisation, and his services have been employed by reputable organisations across a wide range of industries, including banking, mining, legal services, transport, media, and government. And most recently, for the past 4 years, he has hosted the radio show Maximise Your Career Potential. So we're both in the sort of same game, DJ and I, so trying to educate and inform business owners on how to better their businesses. So welcome, DJ, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today, Rose, and I'm sure we're going to have a good time.
I'm sure we are. So I guess tell me a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, my background, I call it a bit of a hybrid background. How do I explain this? Because it's always very weird, because one, I have an entrepreneurial background, but I also have a corporate background. And actually, the both of them make up my background, and they've helped me be who I am today. So in the corporate world, I've worked in people development, specifically management and leadership development, which is really around developing the managers within an organization so that they can deliver the vision and the plan of the business. And that's what I've done in corporate. I've done that work in corporate basically since about 2006. However, while I was doing that, I got involved in the entrepreneurial space a little earlier than that, 2002. At the time, I mean, I was younger than I am now. I like in my head, I like to think I'm still young. Right? So I was a bit younger than I am right now. And I was just looking for something that I could do. I knew I had a passion for helping people. I also had the drive to want to do something meaningful with my life. And I was drawn into entrepreneurship, and just literally got involved in trying to build businesses online very early on. I mean, webinars now are a thing. I attended my first webinar in 2003 and hosted my own first webinar in 2004. So that just helps you understand I got involved a little earlier than most people. And so I've just been on both tracks, which is building, within corporate, really understanding corporate business structure. And there's a lot that you can learn there in dealing with, but also in the entrepreneurial space, trying to, build a business, especially part-time, which I did for almost 10 years before I went full-time in 2011. And so just having those two strong backgrounds in the entrepreneurial space and in the corporate space had really helped ground me. But also it's just helped me to understand the thinkings, and the thinkings are very different. There's a lot that we can learn from, a lot of times people in corporate knock SMEs, and people in the SME space knock the corporate space. But the reality is there's so much to learn from each of these spaces. And a lot of people in SMEs could actually adapt a lot of things that are done in corporate, and they would help their businesses. And a lot of corporate organizations could really just go and study small businesses. And there's so much they could learn that can make a difference. I just happen to be privileged to have really gone deep within both spaces, which has really helped me to be where I am today.
Yeah, corporate, I think a lot of corporations have forgotten that they started as probably a small SME in the first place.
Yeah.
And they've just forgotten their roots, and they've become so big that they forget the little people down the bottom. And it's quite a shame. And SMEs, of course, they don't like the corporations, because the corporations quite often take work off them. So
true.
So I can understand both sides of the coin, because I've worked in both as well. So and having an HR background is, you could get to see a lot of stuff that's happening in the world, and it's and they could really learn, as you said, from each other, because there's a lot that each can give. And that's what primarily this show is about, is trying to educate and inform SMEs how to become better corporate citizens.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So and so that's really it. So tell me a little bit about your radio show and what you do.
Yeah, my radio show, I actually hosted it for 4 years, and it was called Maximize Your Career Potential. And it was syndicated on a few radio stations at the time. The core radio station was called Kent Christian Radio, which is a radio station here in Kent, England, which is really just a Christian radio. And I was hosting a show which was around I knew the gentleman who owned the radio station, and he got in touch with me because he'd seen a few things I've been doing, and he says, hey, can you come and just host a show where you can really help people do well in the marketplace and just share a few hints and tips? And I felt, okay, I think this was about 2013, and I was like, sure, why not? And I started, and the show really was just focused at the time, and it's just helping people understand how they can make the most of the time they spend in the marketplace. You have to spend a third of your time at work. So a third of your time is spent in the marketplace. That's a third of your life, technically, and a third of the rest. So when you think about it, you really want to make the most of the time you spend in the marketplace. And when you consider actually that you spend another third of your life asleep, and then you spend, about half of the rest of that time commuting to work and back from work, then it just makes sense that you make the most of that time, be the best person you can be in the marketplace. And that's what that show was about. Hosted it for 4 years, absolutely loved it. Made it a lot of difference for a lot of people. Had some amazing guests just come and share their stories, which was really great. At some point, though, I needed to make a decision about where I was going. The truth is, I thought about it for about 18 months, and I eventually just had to just approach them and say, I'm moving in a different direction, and I had to end the show at the time. But I still have a lot of pleasant memories of that time.
Yeah, it's the podcast has been going for less than a year, this one, and I've had I think you're about my 140th guest in that time. Wow. Yeah, I do, between 4 and 8 interviews a week. So it's quite
that's
long.
Fascinating.
And so, and I've had people from 500 Fortune companies and authors and all sorts of, not famous, but they're well known in their industries. Come on here and just impart their knowledge and whatever. And it's been really fascinating. There's a lot of things that I've learned from them, which is absolutely brilliant. And it just amazes me that they've started off with, a lot of times with absolutely nothing. And some of them have been broke or bankrupt, 2 or 3 times, and still managed to pick their feet up and made such a success out of their life. It's a really it's a testament to them, to their tenacity, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess getting back to businesses and the things that that you have knowledge around, and I did say that you've worked in banking and mining and legal services, and so how do you I guess help organisations employ and develop themselves and their staff? So
I think with corporate organizations,
their managers
for
are
me,
delivering the best.
for me, the big question is, as a business, where are you going? It's really critical when I'm sitting down, whether I'm sitting down with the head of HR, whether I'm sitting down with the CEO of an organization. For me, that question is really critical, and you've got to be able to explain it in a way that, and this is critical, that would make sense. Now, what do I mean by that? Right? A lot of times, entrepreneurs, not just entrepreneurs, but leaders in corporate or wherever, they know what they want. They have a sense of it, but they don't know how to communicate it, which means it's in their head. But when they share it with me, when they vocalize it, number one, it's not clear. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't inspire. And sometimes what happens, and it's weird because in corporate, if there's one thing that people need to stop being in corporate, is being too smart. Let me explain what I mean. People come into a meeting, right? And someone is speaking and they're saying something. Most of us don't understand what they're saying. It doesn't make sense to us. But what do? We pretend like we get it.
And no one asks, no one questions.
Does that make sense? But, the thing is, you've got to learn, if you're going to help people, and this is it. So now I'm speaking as a consultant. There's one thing that I do is like, can I just check something? And usually it's really interesting because when I say, can I just check something? You said that. But considering this and this, I'm not sure how that fits together. And you know what happens? I then see about half of the table start nodding. And I'm thinking, well, but why didn't you check yourselves? A lot of times and I don't want to use the word pretend, but I probably would, right? A lot of times and this is because again, we're talking about corporate, but it's a problem with SMEs, but it's a bigger problem in corporate, because what then happens is we're then putting out vision statements, we're putting out mission statements, we're putting out strategy statements, we're putting out business plans that actually don't make sense. Now, when I say don't make sense, let me explain. It may make sense to the person who produced it, but for those who consume it, it doesn't. And then it becomes subject to what I call private interpretation, which means everyone chooses to enter from their own perspective. And they say, I'm just going to chuck that. I'm going to chuck that. I'm just going to, and so what happens is we then have multiple vision. Now, people talk about division. Right? Division means two visions, which simply means there's two people who are seeing two different things. But when you have multiple visions within an organization, which happens within most businesses, unfortunately.
Even SMEs have it. They do, honestly, because, if you don't communicate clearly and concisely, it's gibberish to the rest of us.
Spot on. And that's really, it happens everywhere. It's just that within corporate, we could still be doing well in spite of that, which is fine when things are good. But the moment things begin to go wrong, like, this weird thing called Corona, COVID-19 just shows up and messes up how we do business. All of a sudden, organizations where there hasn't been clarity with our messaging and our communication, this is where things begin to fall apart, because we were doing well in spite of that, usually because we've stumbled across something that worked. And because it worked, we just kept doing it. So we think our communication's tight. It's not. We think our systems are, we think that our performance management and our development solutions are good. They're not. We're just doing well in spite of that. But the moment something happens, a disruption comes along, that's when we begin to distinguish between the businesses or the organizations who have really got clarity in their messaging and communication across board, where people people who are on the front line understand what's going on, and the people who are at the top understand. I talk about strategic view and operational views. Now, the reality is when you're at the top of an organization, you have a strategic view, which means I use the London Eye, and I'm going to explain the London Eye for anyone who is watching or listening to this who doesn't know the London Eye. The London Eye is this big wheel in London where you go on, a lot of tourists who come into London. It's one thing you got to do. You've got to go on the London Eye. Now, when you get to the top of this Ferris wheel, at the very top of the London Eye, you literally can see the whole of London. You literally can, and it's really cool. You see that you just look around you and you can see a good chunk of London, and that's what it's like to be the CEO of an organization or to sit as an executive member of an organization. Is you have this strategic view. But I'm saying, okay, but if there was an accident, if there was an accident somewhere on Bond Street while you are up there, right? Would you be aware? No, you won't. But you can see the whole of London from where you sit. You know that you have a sense of what's going on in London right now, but actually you don't. See, that's the thing. So you do have a view, which helps you with making some decisions. The challenge, though, is the operations are happening on the ground. And you are really, even though you have this strategic aerial view, you actually don't have a sense of what's happening on the ground. And this is one of the challenges of corporate, and this is where communication comes to play. So how we speak up here, is it the same way they speak down there? Because if I'm sending out these emails to staff, why would they be opening the emails when they're opening it up and it's like a foreign language to them? After a while, they're going to stop opening. So we're going to be thinking we're communicating, but we're not.
Absolutely.
And so we're doing a lot of briefings where we're speaking. So the CEO does it because now we're leveraging tech. Tech's amazing. So you jump on Microsoft Teams and then you just have whoever it is at corporate level speaking to the whole business. And from where they sit, it makes sense. And this is it. It does make sense. The challenge is the person who's on the front line, they can't connect with what you're saying. They don't understand your language. You don't understand their language. How are we then talking to each other? How are we going to be working together towards achieving an outcome? So usually that's where I'd like to start, is actually where are we going as a business, as an organization? Okay, now, how do we communicate this in a way? So I like this. This is good stuff. But we need to bring in some Franks and some Joes and some Angelas and some Samanthas, from the front line, from the frontline operations, frontline management, middle management, senior management. Let's get into a room together and let's work on this message so it resonates with the whole business. That's what we've got to start from. I know this makes sense to you, but we've got to make sure you're going to get in the room with these people, and we've got to make sure that what we have on there makes when we all hear it, when we read it, we all get it like you mean it. Until then, we can't work on it.
No, that's right.
Usually that's where it begins. It begins there. Then we can move on to other stuff. Then we can then look at, okay, now that we have a sense of where we're going, now let's go and have a look at the business and let's look at what we have. And how can we use what we have to get to where we're going? If not, we need to improve what we have. So what does improving look like? Is it processes we need to look at? Process improvement, what processes? If it's the people, do we need to develop the ones we have, or do we need to bring in new skills because of the timings, whatever? So we make those decisions, and that's when and then we then begin to look at how we implement that. And that's pretty much the sort of thing that I would do.
Yeah, that's a very good explanation, actually. I like the thing about the eye. I've seen it. I think it's a bit of an eyesore, but no pun intended. No pun intended, but I just think it ruins the whole scenescape of London. It just, that's just my opinion, though.
That's fine.
But I think it's awesome. I think if you could get up on top of it and have a look, bit like the Eiffel Tower, I'd like to one day go up there as well and have a look, and the Empire State Building and all those sorts of places.
Yeah.
just to have a look. But one day I will. One day, it's on my bucket list. But your analogy was quite right. It is, people in the top management have no idea what's happening down on the coalface, and they use language that's, I understand that they use language that's foreign. They use these great, huge, long words that someone on the coalface who has minimum education, they wouldn't understand what those words mean.
Yeah.
And they don't bother to go and use a thesaurus. The manager wouldn't use a thesaurus to find out something. Well, what's more common than the word I've used? If you're not really sure, because he's probably got a, uni graduate or something, or whatever. He's got this, probably heaps more educated than someone on the coalface. I'm not saying that people on the coalface aren't educated. That's not what I'm trying to say. But you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do. But even beyond the education, it's the company that you're used to keeping determines the language you're used to using. So the guy who's working in the front line, even if he does have a degree, you'd be surprised, and this is amazing, right? There are certain people who are very educated, but because they work in the front line, there's certain language which is commonplace. I remember when I moved from working in operations to working in corporate, I landed this job for I have no idea why they gave me this job. So I moved from working as a duty manager within London Underground to working as a management and leadership development trainer. So I remember the very first meeting, and I come into this meeting, right? And I felt, you know what, I've invested in personal development. I read a book a week and that sort of thing. So I kind of felt, yeah, I can do this. But my background is in, go and have a look on the train, go and check and help that customer and see what's going on there. Can you go ahead and do a station inspection? That's what my old job used to be, right? Now I'm sitting here in a meeting, the L&D design and delivery team meeting. And I'm honestly, I'm sitting here and there's a discussion going on and I don't have a clue what they're saying. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? I wonder if my old job is still there because I want to go back. I'm so out of place right now. I'm like a duck. I really just felt like, like a fish out of water. I just felt, I felt vulnerable. And then someone says, DJ, what do you think? I'm like, oh, yeah. It makes sense. I had no idea what was going on.
No, and no one likes to play like they're stupid. They just, and they don't. Nobody does. It's terrible. You agree to these things, and as you said, you had no idea, but you didn't want to play. Oh my God, I don't understand. You don't want to let them know that because
exactly.
they think you were like stupid.
Funny enough, 2 months in, right, just barely 2 months in, right, it's now just common language to me. It's why? Because I'm surrounded by it. See, and so understanding this is really critical because so if I'm someone who works with HR colleagues and these are the people who I spend time with, and then I go into operations and I start using HR speak, as I'm just going to be, and then we have that person who's going to be pretending to understand what I'm saying but doesn't. And that happens a lot of the time.
Yeah,
so I'm sitting down with a manager and we're discussing a few things and he or she's pretending to get it, but they don't. And then they say some things about their part of the business and I'm pretending to get it, but I don't. And this literally just happens. And why? Because we are, it's my environment. It's how we speak here. It's just like, you and I, we both speak English, but that we speak different kinds of English. And so you may say something that I don't get, or I may say something which you won't get, even though we're speaking the same language, because you're speaking language that's evolved in Australia. I'm speaking language that's evolved here in England. And even though it's the same language, it's evolved in different ways in different environments. And it's the same thing across organizations, even across different business areas in the same company. And that's why if you are the higher up you go within a business, getting, just making sure you're not disconnected from the lower rungs, to make sure it's just like, in church, I work with teenagers. And it's really important that I stay close to teenagers so I can speak their language. I don't want to be going there and using a slang that was cool in 1993. And then I say that and they're looking at me, well, what's he saying? Yeah, I can't. So I've got to stay connected in order to be relevant. This is a critical thing. In order to be relevant to that group, I need to really stay connected so I can understand their language, because when I speak their language, then they feel like he gets us. And this is what happens at corporate is and we have very smart, intelligent people, because I keep saying, you know what, if you were not smart, if you weren't intelligent, you won't be where you are. However, the people who are downstairs don't think you are, because you're disconnected from the reality of their world, and you're talking to them like you know how to solve their problems, but actually they don't feel you understand their problems, because what you're saying is way off, because you're disconnected. So, these are some of the challenges a corporate is, we're just there's just this disconnection which impacts on engagement and productivity.
And what happens is that when there's a disconnect in the message and then you go and relate it to somebody else, you're only relating the bit that you understand and you're missing the whole message. And so then the message gets convoluted and destroyed and turned around, and it doesn't. And that's, a bit like Chinese whispers, really, isn't it? It's
exactly.
And that's what happens, when the message isn't understood by either party. It's like in marriage, if you don't understand each other's message, then this is when arguments and that ensue. And you just need to. Language is so important. It is to be understand both sides of the story. It is very important.
And for SMEs as well. See, and this is where a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, we don't understand. And I know when I started out, I made that mistake. We don't understand the power of messaging. It's the same thing. If small businesses just got their messaging right, because many people who are entrepreneurs, small business owners, people who are starting their businesses, the biggest frustration is they're putting in a lot of effort and they're not getting much movement. That's the biggest frustration. I'm not talking about lazy people. I'm not talking about people who try once and then quit. And unfortunately, that's the majority of people who go into business. They just try a few things and they say, nah, it's not working. Those are not the people I'm talking about. Those people, it's a mindset situation. They need to work on their mindset. But I'm talking about the people who are not lazy buggers. I'm talking about the people who will show up. And these are the people who, they just keep waking up. These are the people, they're tough. And I used to be that person. So I understand this person. This is a person who, as they say, they take a licking and they still keep ticking. These are the people who, they have a bad day. They go to bed feeling sorry for themselves, and they wake up tomorrow morning and they're going to have another go. And they keep on going and they keep on going. They're working hard at it. They're working the numbers, they're showing up. If it's doing the Facebook lives or whatever it is they're doing, they keep doing the Facebook lives, they keep posting on social media, they keep doing all that other stuff that someone said they need to do to get visibility and all that other stuff. And they're doing it and doing it and doing it, but they're not getting the results. And usually for most of these people who are showing up consistently and working hard and not getting results, there's lots of different reasons, but one key reason is messaging. They get their messaging wrong. It's amazing how and I see it a lot of the time, because you see, social media is a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword, because social media, there's a low barrier to entry, because it costs you nothing to open an Instagram account, or to open a Facebook account, or to open a TikTok account, or to open a YouTube account, or to open what's the other one, or a Twitter account,
or LinkedIn,
the LinkedIn account. It costs you nothing. And because it costs you nothing, people are just jumping on and they're just working at it. Now, the truth is, it doesn't cost you money, but it can cost you time. And your time is your most valuable asset, because your time is your life. With every second that goes past, you and I are closer to the grave than the previous second. I know that's not a cool thing to think about, but it's the truth.
It is.
With every second, I'm closer to the grave now than a second ago. It's just the reality for all of us, everyone who's listening to this or watching this right now. We all are. And so, yeah, you can just keep on posting on social media and keep on doing all that other stuff and going live every day. And you're doing all this and you're not getting traction. Then usually there's a strategy problem, one. But another big one is the messaging. Many people, I just see messaging on people's websites. I see messaging, listening to people speak. And yes, they're experts. They have stuff that could help people. So they're experts, they know their stuff, they have stuff that could help people, but they're not connecting with people. They're not connecting. They're not connecting because their messaging is off. They are speaking from their perspectives. And when you speak from your perspective, you can't I'll use a classic one, life coaches. I've worked with a lot of life coaches. And there's a terminology, limiting beliefs, right? Coaches use it a lot, and limiting beliefs are real. Right? Because what you believe is your reality. What you believe determines how you do life, how you respond to life, how you approach life, right? The challenge, though, is you have life coaches who go on and then start talking about limiting beliefs. So, hey, you've got to identify your limiting beliefs. I'm thinking that message doesn't connect with the average Joe and Jane out there. It just doesn't, right? So what are the limiting beliefs that are holding people back? Right? Maybe fear. Okay, fear of what? Right? What are the three biggest fears? Right? Why don't you talk about that? Why don't you say, do you find yourself being afraid? Being afraid of whatever it is. What does that look like? What could that look like in people's lives? So you then begin to create messaging that people can connect with. I know we have terminology that we use to describe it. I know, but when you keep on speaking language that life coaches would understand, but normal human beings would not understand. You would only attract life coaches. You won't attract normal human beings who need a life coach's help. And this really is the problem for a lot of people who are trying to build businesses, especially coaches, because I do a lot of work with coaches, is the messaging. So we talk about the guys in corporate and how they get their messaging wrong, but you see SMEs and you just, I hear the language they use in their radio, in their social content, that they're putting out, and even on their websites, the messaging is just so off. You're not speaking to the person's emotions and intellect. You're not speaking to the person who has a problem. You're speaking to yourself. And you're speaking to people like you. But people like you are not your target audience. And this is critical. This is what I would say. So how would you explain chemistry to an 8-year-old so they would get excited about it? That's one thing. So first of all, let's talk about that. How would you explain chemistry? So if you are a chemist and you wanted to explain chemistry to an 8-year-old so they would get excited about it, how would you do it? Would you explain it the same way you would be? Would you just define it the same way you would define it to an 18-year-old? I hope not. Right? Because it's a different person who sees the world in a different way, who understands the world in a different way. And so you've got to connect with them in their own way. It goes back to you've got to understand them. You've got to know them. The challenge with many experts is they know their stuff more than they know their people. And so they can talk about their stuff really well, but they don't talk about it in a way that it connects with their people because they don't know their people. They know themselves. So they know that, and this was me, by the way. So what I'm describing here, because I can remember my woes. I remember when I got involved back in the day in 2002 with direct sales network marketing. And the key thing that attracted me to it at the time was they said, for me to succeed, I needed to help other people succeed, which resonated with me. But I got involved for one reason. At the time it was financial freedom. I'd read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was really excited. I was young. I was in my late 20s, and I was looking at the time, I was looking for something I could use to build financial freedom, and network marketing was one of the things he recommended. And he said it costs you next to nothing to start, unlike a traditional business. And I went for it. And I remembered I would go with excitement. I studied my compensation plan. I studied our products. I studied the industry, right? And I would go and just start to, everything that excited me, I would sit down with people and I just begin to talk about all that stuff that excites me, full of excitement, full of passion, full of energy. And they would say things like, DJ, you're really going to do very well at this, but no, I'm not interested.
I understand why.
So the question is why? It was because I was talking about stuff that was important to me that meant nothing to them.
That's it.
And this is where we get our messaging wrong is I spent so much time studying the industry, studying my company, studying the products, but I spent no time trying to study and understand my people. And so my messaging was not resonating with them. And so I wasn't able to move them along. Now, this is what a lot of small business owners, if you look at how they do what they do. So, for example, I'm a brilliant and amazing accountant. I understand the importance of accountants to business. I understand the risks of not, managing your accounts well and da, 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 da. And then now I'm trying to pitch, my accounting services to small businesses or people, but the challenge is I don't understand them, their realities, their frustrations, their desires, their dreams, what's important to them. I know a lot about accounting. I know a lot about the accountancy laws. I know a lot about the implications of not doing things right. I know how much damage it could do to a business. I know all that stuff. And I know how to do the accounts. I know all that other stuff. But I don't know them. I don't know what keeps them up at night. I don't know what gets them excited. I don't know what makes them panic. I don't understand that. And so my messaging is full of intellectual stuff that doesn't connect with them. And so I keep putting out stuff. I keep doing stuff. My friends are liking it. People who know me are saying good stuff. Well done, da, 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 da. This is, and all of that. My fellow accountants are sharing my stuff, saying this is some really good stuff you're putting out here, da, 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 da. So I'm getting validation from my friends and family, who are, and then I go and write a book as well, because I'm really pumped up. I write a book because someone says you've got to have a book to show you're a credible authority. And I do my book. Obviously, nobody buys it except from my mom and my two cousins, but I'm still showing up. But I don't quit because I'm not a quitter, but I'm not making progress because I'm not connecting with the people. Why? Because I don't know them. And if I don't know them, I can't speak. My messaging will not connect with them. And this basically happens. So that's why when I sit down with small business owners, especially people who've been in business for a while. So if you've been in business for 18 months, for example, and you've not had traction financially, now I'm not overly impressed by social traction. And I'm going to put this out there right now. I'm not overly impressed by social traction. So yes, you can have, 10,000 fans and all these other social metrics. Usually the questions I ask when I sit down with an entrepreneur, a business person is, okay, how much did you make last month? That's usually the first question. And they're going to be honest with me because they know that I can help them. And what I see consistently is, and I learned this very early on, before social media really exploded, in the very early days of social media. The reason I started Profit from Coaching was because by chance, I'll just share this story with you very quickly because I'm also conscious of, time, right? I was invited, I think this was 2013. Yeah, 2013. A friend of mine recommended me to someone who was hosting an event because she was supposed to speak on marketing and she wasn't going to be available. They asked her if she knew anyone. She said me. She said, if you know, DJ is the one person I would say he should come and speak on marketing. So I was, because I've been working with the corporates a lot at the time, hadn't been doing a lot of work with SMEs. So because my friend recommended me, I went along. Now, I go to this event and I come across a good number of people I call social media celebrities. What I mean by that is these are the people who I've been seeing who really had big followings on social media, who, you know, they're the ones who, you know, they post, they get, you know, so many likes and shares, and they're sharing, you know, all these, you know, all this stuff. But as I began to engage with them, as I began to talk to them at the event, I was nowhere near as big as them on social media, still not. But I began to realize something. One, they weren't making money. Two, they did not know how to make money. And for me, that was shocking, because with the level of social capital that they had, I was taken aback. It just didn't add up. And then I spoke to the organizer of the event, who went on to who's now a good friend of mine, right? And so she was like, DJ, she said, you would be surprised that a lot of these guys, they just care about helping people, but they really don't understand the business side of things. And that was actually when I said, okay, what can we do? Let's just run an event, you know, and we'll call it Profit from Coaching. And I will just share a few things about how to, you know, build a money-making business around that. So so now I know that. So when I sit down with a person, a lot of times, you know, people like to brag, because I mean, we all do it. You know, you like to brag because it makes you feel good. You want to, it validates you when you talk about oh, I've got these many fans. Oh, I ran this summit and I had these many people show up. Oh, I did that. And this is usually what people do because they're looking for validation. I mean, we all do it. So it's not like it's a bad thing. We're looking for things to make us, to validate the work that we've done. So it's not a negative thing. It's just that when I'm sitting with them, my goal is I'm looking to see how I can help you make money. And so we're going to focus on money. So you say all that other stuff, and then I'm going to come back and say, okay, that's really great. How much did you make last month? And then they'll say, well, I've not really done my accounts, I say, okay, that's okay. Let's go the month before that. How much did you make? Why am I asking that question? Because I want to know the state of their business. And if I'm going to know the state of their business, I need to know, one, how much did you make? Number two, how much did you spend? So how much at least is, you know, first line profits, so we can see how healthy your business is. And then we can look at how we can move things forward. Now, for a lot of people who are in business, and they're not lazy, that's the thing, and they're good at their stuff, they know their stuff. A lot of times they're showing up, but they're disconnected. They still think that it is their expertise, and this is crazy. They think that it is their expertise that gets them clients. It's not your expertise. It's your ability to build belief that gets clients. And I'm thinking you and I might have to do another, hopefully we can do another show where I can
we
talk
will
about
later on
this.
in the year,
Big
DJ.
one.
This is a really fascinating conversation. It is. But yeah, I think we might just leave it at that for now, because yeah, it'll go on, I reckon, all night.
Yeah.
Anyway, so where can people find you, DJ?
You can find me, my website, profitfromcoaching.com. You can find me on there. And that's for those of you who maybe are looking to build businesses around your expertise. You can definitely find me there. If you maybe are from a corporate background, then just check me out on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I literally work with corporate clients at the moment, as well as working with coaches, consultants, and people and experts building their businesses. So I technically have two businesses that I run. One I run via LinkedIn, and the other one I run via Profit from Coaching. So you can find me via either one of those websites.
Perfectly perfect. Thank you. I was absolutely fascinated. To be honest, it was a really great conversation, and I thank you for joining me today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and yeah, well done for what you do. Well done for what you do.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you next time.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks, everyone. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate you all. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye.